Welcome to Spotlight Television in our brand new series for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs. You know, they say that entrepreneurship is living a few years of your life like most people won't, so that you can spend the rest of your life living like most people can't. Today, every youngster wants to become an entrepreneur, but without a concrete and unique idea, they make mistakes in their ventures while embarking on their journey, which leads to failure and disappointment. What they, and for that matter, every budding entrepreneur needs to realize is that entrepreneurship is not a cakewalk and not as simple as it seems to be. In this series, we'll bring you conversations and interviews with small business entrepreneurs from all over the country whose stories and experiences will help you out in commencing your entrepreneurial journey in a successful manner. Joining me today is Clint Coons. He's an attorney, real estate asset protection expert, and founding partner of Anderson Business Advisors. As one of the founding partners of Anderson Law Group, Clint has grown his legal and tax firm to over 200 employees by assisting real estate investors with creating and implementing solid entity structuring plans. His success in this regard is in large part due to his personal investing experience. Taking what he's learned growing up in a real estate family, Clint has acquired over 100 properties from small single-family homes to commercial buildings and has used his innovative and dynamic strategies coupled with knowledge born from experience to help thousands of people save millions of dollars and build real wealth. Clint, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hey, Rick, I'm doing fine. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, thank you for taking the time and joining us. Now, before we get started, I just wanted to point out the little thing off your shoulder there. Greatness demands everything, because I think in terms of, what you do and how this conversation, I hope, is going to go, we're going to see what can lead people to, achieve that greatness, because like that sign says, greatness demands everything.
Yeah, it does. And that's something that a lot of people don't appreciate. When it comes to building your own business, getting involved in real estate or whatever it is you're doing, it takes 110% to reach your goals. And I've learned that over the years.
Yeah, and especially with entrepreneurs, like when you started in real estate investing, let's just jump right into it, because there's a lot we want to try and get to here. What was the most important piece of advice that you got? Because, we're not all born with real estate knowledge.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my father taught me that there were no days off. So when I was growing up, if I wasn't in sports, it was working after school on Saturdays, Sundays. But more important from that, I learned from clients as well that when it comes to growing anything, it's about mindset. And everybody wants to talk about taxation, asset protection when it comes to real estate investing. But it's to understand that you're building a business and you need to take action that will help further that interest. And many people miss that when it comes to setting up the proper structures or going about making their investments.
Right. Now you mentioned your father. Real quick, how important was that, having that type of mentorship also, as you're looking forward and like, okay, this is what I want to do. How important was that for your development?
Well, at the time, you think it sucks, right? I mean, you'd rather be doing other things, hanging out with your buddies. But it was really crucial, for sure, because it taught me something. Whenever I've worked for other people, I knew I would never be able to hold a regular W-2 working for somebody else. I had to have my own business, because the way I always treated things is that it was my own business. And so I would embrace the role as if I owned that company. I think that was instilled upon me growing up, that you just don't really realize at the time.
Right. Now, okay, so now let's fast forward a bit, and you've decided to take this leap of faith, right, in yourself, starting this business, jumping into real estate, the investing. Tell us about some of the biggest traps or maybe mistakes that maybe you've made or you've seen others make in getting this thing going.
Yeah, with building your business or in building real estate, the number one trap that I see people make is they want to go right after reducing their taxes. I mean, if you asked 100 people in a room, how many of you want to pay zero in federal income tax? Everyone's going to raise their hand.
Oh, yeah.
And I get it, right? Why not? Because we always feel like we overpay. And so I did that. When I started my business in 99, my partner and I, we raced to zero. And we can make $500,000 in a given year, and we'd pay zero in federal income tax. And I thought I was the smartest guy out there. But I realized that when it came to expanding my business, to going out there and acquiring real estate and to build my investment portfolio, you had to leverage. And you'd go to a lender and they say, let me see a copy of your tax return. I'm like, you don't want to see that. They're like, nope, we have to see it. And they look at it, right? Oh, you make no money. How are you going to pay off this loan? Oh, I really do make money. It just doesn't show up there. Illicit activities is what they would think. So,
well,
taught me something.
Yeah, no doubt. Now talk about that a little bit too, because walking in and you're talking about structuring, and I guess this leads us to entity structuring, right? Because now you're talking about expanding and growing,
yep.
and how does that explain how that's important, especially early on for somebody who's getting into this?
It's about, again, I look at it as a three-legged stool. You have asset protection, which is the basic LLC, corporation, whatever you're setting up. You have tax planning, which is important. And then you have that business planning leg that we discussed. And so you want to create an entity that's going to operate on all three legs for you, that's going to allow you to accomplish your goals, and understanding that if you set up the right structures, they can actually help you do more, such as the way income hits your tax return, the way it's going to look if somebody's looking at that return, whether or not you're going to be audited. So if you want to get a little aggressive with your strategy, so many real estate investors own property in their own names, and it shows up in a certain area of their return. So they're more exposed to audit risk, or it makes it harder to borrow because lenders won't account for 100% of their income. So it messes up their debt to income ratio. So knowing that, which when I started out, I didn't know all this. I learned it along the way from losing deals and businesses that didn't grow as fast as I'd like them to.
All right. Now, explain the use of those, like the LLCs, for instance, especially when it comes to minimizing risk, because I think, everybody going in wants to, like you said, they want to avoid taxes. They don't want to pay taxes, but they also want to avoid that risk, too, when it comes to investment properties.
Yeah. Well, you see, so this is the thing. A lot of people say just load up on insurance. I've dealt or talked to a lot of people over the years in events that I've taught, and they come up to me every so often. There's always 2 or 3 people that will come up and they'll say, hey, let me tell you something. I was that guy. I lost everything. I had it. And then one mistake wiped me out. Insurance didn't cover enough. And so when it comes to asset protection planning, especially for real estate investing, what I tell individuals, I said, you're probably not going to be sued. I've never been sued. I have a portfolio of close to 200 properties, right? I've come close. I had a tree fall through a house and narrowly missed the person who was sleeping in the master bedroom. But the point that I recognize is that if something like that did happen, or maybe I rent to somebody who wants to run a home-based business and brew meth in the apartment, and they burn themselves up, that's going to come back to bite. And I'm going to wish I had that protection in place. And so we tell people, set up an LLC to hold that property, so that if something does go wrong, you yourself aren't going to be held personally liable. Your other assets are not going to be at risk. And so that's an important life lesson that some people don't learn until it's too late.
Right. Yeah, and unfortunately, you make a great point that they don't learn until it actually happens. And then it's tough to, like you said, you're protected if you've done it right, the LLC. But if not, then everything gets exposed. Your family, your personal items, everything like that. Now, what about when you're getting started in real estate investing for the first time? For the newbies out there, people that have maybe bought 1 or 2 pieces of property, but they're still kind of new at it. Should they consider setting up, say, as an entity itself?
Yeah, they should consider setting up an entity, but the question is, what is the right entity you should set up? And this is where people run into problems. They don't understand there's nuances between various states. I mean, you take Florida. If you had a piece of property down there and it's typically going to be encumbered, and you put it into an LLC because everyone tells you to use LLCs, and then you get hit with a doc stamp. Or you go with Tennessee and you set up your LLC and you don't set it up the right way, and next thing you know, you're having to pay an extra franchise fee every year, and you could have avoided it. So it's knowing where you're investing, working with somebody who understands the nuances of that state or even of that county, and then creating the structure that's going to be best suited to protect it. Granted, the LLC is a workhorse, and if you're just starting out, I definitely think you should be putting it in an entity, because if you get sued, you make a mistake. You're more apt to make the mistakes when you're first starting than you are if you've been investing like I have for 20 years. Then what will occur is you get a judgment, possibly it's entered against you, and now you can't invest for another 5 or 6 years until that judgment drops off your record.
Right.
So, or you paid it off. So, and protection from the outset is really important for the new investor.
Right. Now, what about, because I wanted to circle back to taxes. You mentioned that. Mm-hmm. And again, I think we're all in the same boat. We want to pay as little as possible legally, of course, right?
That's right. Legally is the correct term.
Right. Now, there are some real estate investments. Are there ways for people to discover those to help kind of eliminate or bring down their tax burden?
Yeah, I mean, what you're looking at there is on the real estate side, because everybody, they hear stories about people, Donald Trump doesn't pay anything in taxes, and he makes all this money from real estate. Well, that's through depreciation, all right? Offsetting your income, accelerating the depreciation on properties through cost segregation analysis. So yes, there are opportunities there for individuals. It just has to be in the right context. And so when it comes to investing, I often tell people, I don't buy a property based upon tax planning alone. I buy a property based upon the investment. For me, it's cash flow. And so it has to be in the right market at the right time to make that investment to give me the return that I'm looking for. And then after I have it, then I start looking at tax strategies that I can use to reduce the taxable income that is coming from that particular type of investment. And it could be with the investment itself, or it could be how you classify yourself, or maybe your spouse can claim real estate professional status so you can start deducting more, or you set up the right type of business entity that allows you to upstream income to get it out of your personal tax bracket where you can then spend it for yourself or the benefit of you and your family. So it's strategy planning at that point.
Right. Now, in terms of that strategy, of course, you're talking about, and you've mentioned it a couple times here, different states, right? Mm-hmm. And if you're setting up in a certain state as opposed to a different state, you've got to be aware of some of those things. Would you? I guess the obvious thing would be, hey, find somebody in that area who knows the rules and the regulations. Whether it be a CPA, an attorney. Is that something you think you would direct people to do, to find the right people in their area?
Yeah, so this, I get this question all the time, right?
Okay.
So people come to us from all over the country and we work nationwide, but I tell individuals, if you want someone in your backyard, interview them. If you're a real estate investor and you're going to go to a CPA or you're going to go to an attorney to set up a plan for you, ask them if they invest in real estate. How many properties? What type of investing? Assume that you're engaging in a strategy, they call it house hacking, where you're going to buy a house and you're going to rent rooms out to other individuals to help pay the cost of the mortgage and generate income. Well, ask the professional that you intend to work with, what do you think about house hacking? Can you explain it to me? If they can't, or they think you're engaging in an illegal activity, that should be a red flag for you. That's not the individual you want to be working with, because they're not going to understand the nuances of what it is that you're doing and put together plans that are going to actually help you rather than inadvertently hurt you.
Right. Now, again, talking about different states, there's Nevada, Wyoming, Delaware that advertise. You hear it all the time. Oh, set up your LLC here, and you can invest and do things and avoid all that stuff. Talk about some of the thoughts that you have on that stuff. Is it real? Is it just hype? Is it legitimate?
There's a heck of a lot of hype in that. So we have office in Nevada and Wyoming, two of the states in which we operate in. And the problem that you have is that people think that, well, if I fall prey or if I follow this advice, then I can operate nationwide with these structures, and nothing can be further from the truth. They have their purpose. But if you're going to own a piece of property in Illinois and you set up a Nevada LLC to own this Illinois property, yeah, it'll work until you have to evict your tenant. And then when you try to evict them, the tenant brings up the fact that you weren't registered to do business in Illinois, therefore you can't kick them out. Now your tenant ends up living there for an extra 3 months rent-free because you fell prey to this, this pitch that you could operate that type of business out of Nevada. So I find a lot of investors make that mistake right out of the gate. They think that if they go to Nevada or Delaware or Wyoming, it's going to work for them. It can benefit you, but not in that context.
Right. Now, you did talk about loading up on insurance earlier. Let me ask you this. Would certain types of insurance kind of help mitigate that issue that you just talked about, being one state to another and stuff?
Yeah, wouldn't we love that? And see, that's a mistake that a lot of people make as well. They say, oh, just buy extra insurance and you don't need the entity. Well, yeah, but if you know what type of claims that are typically brought against real estate investors, a lot of them aren't even covered by insurance. So the exact example I gave you, it's not covered by your insurance. You still need insurance. I mean, the way I explain it is that I have insurance because that's what I want the potential creditor that was coming after me, the plaintiffs, to go after. Hey, look, take my policy limits, go away. Don't make me do a spend down so you get nothing at the end of the day. Because when you look at me and my investments, you realize there's not a lot to go after because you can't find anything in my name that makes me appear to be an attractive target to you. And so I use insurance as the carrot, the shiny object. Hey, look at this, and that's what you want. That's all you want.
All right. Well, that's great to know. Hey, as we wrap things up here, Clint, let me ask you, how does your company, Anderson Advisors, when you're working with clients, how do you incorporate that into the guidance you offer them?
Well, what we do is we back into it. So we start off by asking, not if you're a real estate investor, what do you intend to invest in? What type of strategies are you going to be utilizing? And then once we figure that out, how long do you want to be investing in real estate? Then we back into creating the structures around that, because it's not only getting into the deal, it's getting out of the deal. And so you want to make sure whatever you're doing is going to help you accomplish your goals when it comes to investing.
Yeah, well, you know what? I think that's the perfect way to kind of wrap things up. And I mean, you mentioned that word right there, goals. What are your goals? Yep. And in terms of doing that, I think, Clint, you can help people achieve those, right?
Absolutely. That's what we do.
All right. Well, great talking with you. Thank you again for joining us.
Likewise. Thanks, Rick.
Well, Clint, this has been a great conversation, and I'm sure the viewers have absorbed a lot of great information. I want to thank you for joining us today, and I want to thank you, the viewers, for watching. Until next time, I'm Rick Delgado, and this is Spotlight Television.